Easiest way to save a whole bunch of money on your groceries, and this tower garden actually paid for itself in about 4 months. You can't really argue with that. Let's show you how easy it is to actually set this up. Warrior House DIY, empowering you with skills for life. Make sure to like this video, check out our helpful links in the description below, and don't forget to subscribe. A lot of this is going to be time-lapse. This is like our third, maybe fourth time setting up our tower garden. We've moved a few times in the last few years, so I'm going to burn through this thing pretty quickly. But one thing I recommend if you are going to be moving at all is the storage for it. One of the long storage containers with the yellow lid that they sell a lot of the big box stores like Home Depot. If I can find a link for it, I will leave it down below. And full disclosure, it's probably an Amazon commission link. But let's jump into this, guys, because this is really easy. This is how we package this thing. You can kind of just see in there through the camera, and we've got all of our pieces put together. But once you've done this a couple times, you'll really get the hang of it. So one big tip too, put all your nuts and bolts in a Ziploc bag so you don't lose those. And we're going to be building this thing from the top of the lid all the way up to the top. But I'm going to set the lid on the base just so it's a little easier to work in there. And really all you need is a screwdriver for this. Thanks, bud. Thank you, Brendan. One of the first things that you'll use will be the 4 screws. That's going to hold the base section of this tower that actually connects to the lid of the tank. That'll be the first thing that you'll screw together. But first, let's move the lights out of the way and all the important stuff out of the way. If you guys have this home kit, it basically comes ready in a box, ready to use, everything that you need. It's got the lights, it's got the tower, and all of the different formula and stuff like that. Bottom section of the tower is actually going to connect with those screws. So you'll see that there are little grooves along the bottom of each of these sections that line up with the corresponding top or bottom piece depending on how you're fitting it together, and it just simply drops right in like that. And this is where you're going to want to drop your 4 screws in before you kind of get going on anything else. One of the things that comes with this kit is for the lights is a cord that runs up, is a cord keeper that runs all the way up the back of this tower, and it comes with some Velcro strips. I've actually got this Velcro strip lined up to the back side here of where this is going to fit on here. So this is the front, where the, turn that towards you guys. And that's in. I'll drop some screws in there. You don't want to over tighten them because it is metal screws going into plastic. You're going to have a couple different lengths of these rods. There's 2 different lengths. The long ones are going to be for the bottom section of the tower. The short ones are actually going to be in this top section where you'll see like the microgreens go. There's 8 growing pods around each of the top sections. There's 4 around the bottom sections. Some tips and tricks that we can get into later on in the video. You can use these microgreen pods to grow a whole lot more than just microgreens. But let's go ahead and get these longer rods slid up through here. And these rods are going to connect with the wing nuts and the washers from underneath. So I'll turn this thing around just so that I can reach my arm in there, but it's really just that simple, just reaching your arm in there with a washer and a wing nut from the underside. So what you're aligning is the center fill stem with the 2 guide rods, and you're alternating the direction of your growing pods. This one's just going to go just into the tops of the threads because then the extension rods are going to attach right to that spot right there. These are the extension rods. They've got the nut right on there, so we're just going to thread those guys right on. All right, so before attaching the wing nut and washers to the very top here, I'm just going to kind of go over it and make sure that everything's stuck into place, fits into all the little grooves by the pods, the little tongue and groove alignment that you've got right there. Now, this whole thing can be lifted off just like that. Again, like I said, there's going to be 3 bolts and wing nuts that are gonna hold this lid into here. But before we do that, we're gonna wanna make sure that we've got our pump all situated in here, and the hose is gonna be attached to the underside of the tower itself. When we bought our tower, it was recommended, and I don't think it's a bad recommendation, to buy a second pump in the event that you would need it. If the pump goes out, you've got no water moving through this tower. I think it was a great piece of advice, but we have still not broken this pump. Knock on wood, this pump has actually held up the whole time. And I don't know the total number of hours that it's ran, but you know, we're talking about years at this point. So the pump hose just screws right into the top of the pump there. And then the side of this is going to screw into the bottom side of the tower. Now I like to do this all, let's see if I can get this a little bit more in your view here. I like to do this before I drop this into the basin. Get a little bit more control over it than trying to do it upside down. This way when your cord is twisting up on you, it's really not twisting up inside that basin and creating more work for you later. Now we are ready to drop this guy in to the basin. This isn't heavy. I'm not struggling by myself to hold this whole thing with one arm while tipping this thing in here, so I'm pretty confident that most people can do this on their own. But it's always great if you do have a second set of hands. There is a rubber grommet that comes with the kit, and it's actually for the wire, the cable for the pump itself. So we're going to stick that right through the back here after we get it wrapped around the wire. So essentially at this point, the tower is completely assembled. We've got a couple other small pieces that we're gonna work through. One is gonna be the water level float. That you don't need to have this thing disassembled. You can just kind of give it a little bit of flex, get it to come up through this hole that's in here. Okay. And then that's gonna float up and down, and it's got markings on it that are gonna tell you 0 of 0. Obviously it's meaning that it's all the way down and it's completely empty. It's got a halfway mark and a full tank mark. So this is also really helpful when it comes to just topping the water level off, and then you can go and check your nutrients and check your pH. We'll get into all of that in a moment, but let's get these lights on here so we can at least show you what this whole thing looks like before we start throwing some plants in it. You'll see there's a little alligator tooth on there that's going to grab that and snaps into place. Once that's connected, then you can go ahead and snap this guy into place like this. We're going to connect all the lights, then we're going to plug it in and do our troubleshooting to see if we have anything that hasn't powered on. All right, well, I don't need to actually turn the pump on just at this moment because we don't have any water in there. We don't want to dry run that pump. But I am going to go ahead and plug the lights in and make sure that everything's working with those. And look at that. All 4 of the lights came on perfectly. Pretty bright. Here's the thing. Aside from the water, which makes this beautiful rain noise, which is really great to listen to. In fact, my wife and I really love this. All the kids do too. Just that's why we're putting it in the living room. But also, we're about to enter the winter months for our family and where we live. This is great for seasonal affective disorder. I'm not going to say that there's any studies to prove that, but what I am going to say is these are grow lights. These are giving off full spectrum lights, and they're sitting in your living room. We call them our happy lights because they truly do kind of help to lift the mood. We run the timer during the day as opposed to at night, but you can do whatever you choose to do with that. All right, now that we know that the lights work, let's go ahead and get this guy put back in the corner. We're going to start working on filling up the water, testing all the levels, getting the nutrients in there, and then we'll show you how to install some plants. We're gonna want that water to run. In my opinion, I like to go about 1 day before I put plants in so I can recheck my, my pH and make sure that everything's right. Now that we filled up the water on our reservoir, you can see based on this fill indicator, we're full, which means we're sitting at about 13 gallons. Again, tips on filling the water: if you're on a hardwood floor, you might want to have a towel underneath it. Just use a 5-gallon bucket. You can pour it right into the reservoir opening right there. Or in my case, as I just showed you, if you're close enough to roll this thing, it is on wheels, and even with 13 gallons in it, it's moving around pretty easily there. You can roll it to a bathroom and just use your shower hose if you have that, or a garden hose if you got a utility sink close by. But I don't think that there's been many revisions to this starter manual here. So we're gonna go to page 5 in here, and as it states 13 gallons, we're gonna be looking at parts A and B of our nutrient formula here. If you've got the home kit for your tower garden, the all-in-one kit, you're gonna get a couple small bottles of part A and B for those nutrients. You will have some other things we'll talk about, like pH balancing, pH testing kit. I went ahead and ordered the extra big jugs. And as I stated before, I went ahead and ordered a second pump, which we've never needed to use, but it's a matter of redundancy. I ordered the big jugs as well. Now, if you run out of the little bottles, I recommend you don't throw them out. You can just fill them back up with the big jugs. It makes it easier to pour. Side tip for you. But the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're doing 20 milliliters of part A and part B for every gallon of water that we have in here. So based on the 13 gallons that were in here, we can actually take the measuring cup that comes with Tower Garden, basically filling it up to about the top line, which is 250 milliliters of each one of these solutions. So I'm going to go ahead and dump those in there, and then we're going to stir it up just a little bit. We're going to start with part A, and I haven't transitioned over to my smaller jugs yet, so bear with me as I spill all over my floor. And we're going pretty close to an exact science on here, just a little bit below the top of here. I'm looking for 240 milliliters, not quite 250, but again, it's really pretty close, not that exact of a science. Okay, so there is part A is on board. Let's move that jug out of the way. And then I'm going to go into part B. You don't have to shake these things vigorously, but you can give them a little swirl back and forth before you pour them in. All right. All right, let's give this guy a little stir. You could turn the pump on and let the tower run at this point to mix everything up. But since we took ours out of storage, I want to make sure that I've got the pH right in here first before I wash down any dust or anything like that that might be in here. And then I'll check it again just to make sure that we're still on the safe side. But it doesn't take a lot. Just give this thing a couple stirs. These are growing nutrients, and you know, there's going to be warnings and stuff like that on the backs of here as far as contact with skin and stuff like that. I've never had any issues with my skin, but I would just say be careful, be cautious. Storing it up and getting a little bit of drops on your skin is not going to be a big deal. Again, this stuff's going on the roots of the plants that we're going to be eating from, so it's not toxic or anything like that. But is it caustic? I don't really think so. I haven't had any issues with it, like I said, but let's move on to the next steps here. You can see that we've gotten our 20 milliliters of fluid for that. We've stirred everything up, and now we're going to use the pH test kit. This pH test kit comes with your Tower Garden home kit. If you don't have a Tower Garden home kit and you've got just one of the standard Tower Garden Flex kits that have been available on the market for many, many years, all of these accessories are also available on their website. But they've made it very, very simple. You've got a color-coded chart that we're going to follow off of. We're going to get our sample in there, and then we're going to add our drops. So according to the book here, we're looking at 5.5 to 6.5 for our optimal pH. If there's an adjustment that's necessary, we'll be doing 1 teaspoon, 5 milliliters at a time of the pH buffering solution. Those are added there. I've actually never needed to use them. I've always been well within range, but we're also in a new city compared to our last place that we lived, so we'll see how the city water is doing here. We're going to go ahead and test this water. 5 milliliters. Five milliliters followed up with 5 drops of solution. Very red, huh? Maybe a little bit less red. We're still very acidic. Just to confirm with the instructions that it comes with, we're looking at 5 milliliters of the pH buffering solution to either raise or lower the pH. And we're going to be doing that 5 milliliter increments at a time here. So this has been swirled up. Let's go ahead and get 5 milliliters in here, and then we'll rinse this out when we're done. Or just a hair over that 5 milliliters. Dump that right in there. Go ahead and give us a stir. Just want to increase that pH. All right, let's go ahead and fill this guy back up again. It's 5 milliliter increments. Okay. We can raise it, we can lower it. We just want to meet in the middle. Looking at 5.5 to 6.5 would be our preferred. I think we're going to be just about there. Now I'm going to go ahead and rinse that guy off after I stir this one out. Okay, let's try this again. 5 drops again. Still pretty red. All right, back to the drawing board. All right, let's see what we got here. 5 drops on this one. Much better. We could probably come up a little bit more, but based on this chart, we're right about at that 5.5. We want to be, between 5.5 and 6.5, so I'm going to bring it up just a tiny bit more. Five milliliters and 5 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, let's get a zoom in on this guy here, and much better. Looks like we're getting a little bit closer to that 6 range, and that is where I'm going to be happy with it. I have a feeling based on the pH of this water in municipal water that we're using for our supply here that we're probably going to be checking our pH a little bit more regularly. Not the worst thing in the world. We had a whole house purification system on our old house in the Chicago suburbs with municipal water there, and we were actually pretty alkalinic in our water. Again, like I said before, never used this kit at all. But right now, we're sitting here right at a good place, 6.0 for the pH. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up really quick and throw some plants in here, turn the lights on, and show you guys how this whole thing looks. If you've got the indoor-outdoor timer for your kit, we're gonna go ahead and get the pump plugged into that. We're gonna leave the lights plugged into a separate outlet. And I'm gonna switch sides so you can kind of get a look at this here, but there's going to be a little sight glass on here, and it's going to show a 0 or a 1. That's actually an O for outdoor or an I for indoor. And as we turn to our growing guide, our startup guide, again, page 5 is going to explain, as you can hear it running, the pump's going to run 5 minutes every 45 minutes. So every 45 minutes, we look forward to that rainforest kind of sound that you can hear, kind of the water's raining on down through here. And I'm going to let this thing run its course while I go ahead and put some plants in it, and then I'm going to recheck the pH of this afterwards. And again, we're going to probably check it about every week at this point. So let's go ahead and get this guy started up. So we've got some bigger plants that we're going to start off with, and these are going to go in these bigger pod holders on the bottom section of this tower. The top section over here is typically for your microgreens or smaller stuff, but we've grown peppers, tomatoes, and even strawberries out of that. But we're going to start with some of these bigger ones, and I've got a couple things that I'm going to put lower, which is going to be my bigger leafy greens, just because I want them to fill up the bottom first. Everybody's got different preferences to this, but that's ours. So we're going to start with regular old lettuce. We'll start with some butter lettuce here. And really it's just as simple as just snapping these pods into place. The little black planter pod that comes with the Tower Garden kit. If you didn't check out that other short that we dropped on the channel, you'll see that there's another little trick actually. If you don't have time to get all your seeds started with using plants that are started from a local nursery, and then cleaning off the roots and transitioning them into rock wool like we did here. All right, and so that I know that it's butter lettuce, I'm just gonna go ahead and put a BL. Dry erase markers work great on here. Something I like to do every now and then though is wipe them off and rewrite them so that the ink doesn't stain any of the plastic. I haven't really had any issues. You could look over this whole tower and probably not make out any of the other words that were on there. Something that's a little bit bigger we're gonna put towards the top. We've got Brussels sprouts. This is gonna be a fun one to try out. Haven't grown Brussels sprouts in our towers, but many people do with great success. And since they're gonna be hanging, I want them a little bit higher, a little closer towards the top there. Then we're just gonna get some red oak leaf lettuce. Bring that one in, it's a little bit bigger as well. Bring that towards the bottom. You got 4 pods around each section for these bigger bottom sections. You can go a little bit higher. The pump is definitely rated for it. It's really going to be a personal preference of how high you want to go in your living room or wherever you're putting your tower garden. And you can hear that the water turned off, so that's fine for now. Once we get the rest of these plants in though, we're going to want to get that water turned back on manually so that we can get the roots wet and wash everything down. All right, let's finish it up and we'll show you how it looks when we're done. A huge way to not only save on your groceries, but have fun with your family and reduce your carbon footprint on the planet, if you will. These tower gardens are great. Like I said, ours paid for itself in about the first 4 months of using it. Obviously, I'll leave all the links down below. Those are going to be my commission links, so those will help our family and help our channel if you decide to purchase through those links. And if you feel like you've gained some value from this video, please, by all means, give us a like, give us a share with somebody else who might gain some value as well. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our other DIY tips and tricks. Thanks again for watching Warrior House DIY. We'll see you in the next video.